Welcome back, everybody. It's been quite a while, several months, since I've posted on this YouTube channel and spoken here. After Donald Trump's election, the world seemed so unpredictable and chaotic that I hesitated to add my voice to anything in the conversation. On top of that, I went through a really nasty bout of what appeared to be COVID, and that left me with serious brain fog, so that it was hard to focus or say anything meaningful. But now the brain fog has lifted somewhat. Of course, the world's challenges haven't disappeared. Iran's nuclear ambitions have been checked a little bit. Gaza is still in a dreadful crisis. The impact of Trump's tariffs remain a complex issue, and the Ukraine appears, we hope, to be nearing some kind of a solution. But today, I want to come out of my shell and focus on three connected issues: Islam, illegal immigration, and third, the parlous state of the UK, which partly derives from the intersection of these two other things. The UK, especially England, feels like a nation at a critical and potentially unstable turning point. If you think you know the British, and especially the English, I encourage you to reconsider. We're reserved and resilient people, but put enough pressure on us and tensions can rise very quickly. Indeed, David Betts, Professor of War Studies at King's College London, warns that Britain is heading towards a civil war, driven by dire social instability, economic decline, cultural fragmentation, factionalism based on ethnic identities, and failures of the political elites on both sides of the house. Let's get into it. In my last series of episodes, I explored Islam with as much fairness and openness as I could manage. I began with a broad overview, making the point that my personal experience with Muslims and their culture has been generally positive. Though I was raised in the Church of England, I now consider myself a secular Buddhist. Buddhist spelt with a small b. And that means I respect people's diverse religious beliefs, Islam included. My career in the developing world started in northern Nigeria, talking to Muslim farmers about tobacco farming. I've worked happily in Islamic countries all over the world, and just lately returned from a very pleasant business trip to Karachi in Pakistan. I approached Islam with an open mind, perhaps even a positive bias rooted in my experience. I read the Qu'ran from the beginning to end, studied many hadiths, read biographies such as Karen Armstrong's book on the Prophet Muhammad, and listened to numerous scholarly discussions. So, Miss Angela Rayner and Mr. Dominic Grieve KC and your, quote, independent working group to advise on a definition of anti-Muslim hatred, Islamophobia, unquote, whatever that definition might be, my efforts to examine Islam were not and are not Islamophobic. I certainly don't claim to be an Islamic scholar, but I made a sincere effort to understand. Hate, by the way, is not in my DNA. Let's make sure that's understood. This effort resulted in 4 episodes examining Islam's history, the Prophet's life, the Quran, and Shari'a. I'm sorry to say, the series bombed. It seems that many non-Muslims prefer to stick to their existing views rather than explore the depths of a faith shared by nearly 2 billion people. dialogues between Muslims and non-Muslims rarely happen, in part because the Qu'ran is viewed by believers as the absolute and unaltered word of God, which makes debate challenging. What I found is that Islam functions not only as a religion, but also as a socio-political framework with a coercive influence over every aspect of life. The concept of submitting to God, Allah is the Arabic word for God, is central to Muslim belief, with varying interpretations about the role and rights of non-Muslims. Most place unbelievers, people like myself, in a subservient role. This is an ideology, not simply a religion, and it's at odds with the collective Western culture. Is this opinion Islamophobic? I say it's not. Read the Quran or listen to my episodes. I'll link them in the description. Islam within its own countries, where the culture has been based on it for centuries, is one thing, not for me to judge. But in my own country, inimical to my culture, that's another thing. Let's turn to immigration. My family heritage is mixed. Roots from Normandy, Belgium, Spain, the Netherlands, and possibly further east, including Moorish or even Indian heritage. One notable ancestor, who gives me the name Quartermaine, arrived with Duke William of Normandy in England in 1066, in small boats. Does that sound familiar? We identify as English, as people shaped over centuries through diverse influences, united by shared culture and values. This culture feels under pressure from rapid demographic change and immigration, especially when government policies fail to encourage integration. Of course, many immigrants assimilate and enrich the UK. But there are clearly growing tensions, particularly around illegal immigration and the cultural differences that go with that. The UK has historically managed diversity under British values, but these common values are under strain. I'm proud to be English. Few nations have contributed so much, both positively and controversially, to world history. My ancestors have been pirates and soldiers. My parents and grandparents fought in 2 world wars, and I served Her Majesty in the British Army. We've had our triumphs and failures, but British English culture remains unique and influential. Sadly, our culture and the values of Western Europe are at risk. Many new immigrants to the UK bring traditions and cultures, customs that challenge our ways. Unfortunately, Islam seems most directly opposed to our ideas of equality and freedom. The old song says, Britons never will be slaves. Yet the word Islam means submission, not to any secular or human authority, but to God, who dictates every aspect of life. Furthermore, Islamic literature indicates a lower status for unbelievers compared to Muslims, emphasizing our spiritual and moral inferiority. We are described as, quote, the worst of creatures. That's Quran Surah 98, verse 6. And, quote, the vilest of animals in Allah's sight. Surah 8, verse 55. Remember, it's an article of Muslim faith that the Quran is the exact and immutable word of God. Dogs and unbelievers and slaves occupy the same societal place in Islam. And to be a Muslim, one is bound in faith to believe this, to accept it. Sorry. English people may worship God in a spiritual sense, but we do not submit to the dictates of popes, archbishops, priests, monks, or imams, not even kings, in our daily lives. This is not a question of nationality, race, or skin colour, which to me are all irrelevant. It's about maintaining the shared values, ethics, and legal frameworks that define life in England. Our system of justice, equality, fairness, and free society differs radically from the socio-political and legal ideas of Shari'a. I believe it's legitimate and necessary to question how Islam and Muslim immigration can fit within the English culture and legal framework. And this has to be discussed openly and respectfully, non-violently. Frankly speaking, however, it is not Islamophobic to say that certain beliefs are diametrically opposed and that cultures based on them are unlikely to live peacefully together. And if you want an example outside Britain and Europe, consider the Muslim-Hindu relations in present-day India, which are strained by violence, discrimination, and the political marginalisation of Muslims. There is a rising Hindu nationalist agenda, and that creates a climate of fear and social polarisation in India. If you disagree, and you might, read those sections of the Quran and convince me I'm wrong. The future of England, and indeed Britain as a whole, probably Europe too, depends on how we navigate these challenges. Silence and avoidance won't help. We need honest conversations about identity, integration, and values if we want to preserve what makes England, our nation, unique, and to avoid what might, as David Betts forecasts, become a catastrophe. Thank you for listening. I'll continue to explore these difficult topics because staying silent is no longer an option. Have a great day. If you enjoyed this, please hit like, subscribe. It all helps. Thanks very much.